There is a war going on right now, and almost nobody is talking about it. It is not happening on the news. It is not happening in your bank account. It is not happening between you and the people who doubted you. It is happening inside your own head every single morning before the world even gets a chance to speak to you. Most people think the biggest fight of their life is out there. The economy, the competition, the bad luck, the people who got a head start. But the truth is simpler and harder to accept. Long before anything shows up in your bank account, your career, or your relationships, it shows up first as a thought. Every building you have ever walked into was once nothing but an idea in somebody's head. Every company, every invention, every life-changing decision, all of it started as something invisible. And your future is no different. Right now, today, your future is being assembled out of the thoughts you keep repeating, the beliefs you keep accepting without question, and the actions you keep taking when nobody is watching. Here is something worth sitting with. Put two people in the exact same situation, same opportunity, same setback, same starting point, and they will often walk away with completely different outcomes. Why? Because they are not actually looking at the same thing. One person sees a closed door and says, "This is the end of the road." Another person sees the same closed door and says, "This means I need to find a different way in." One person loses and says, "I am finished." Another person loses and says, "Now I know what to fix." The gap between them is rarely talent. It is rarely intelligence. It is rarely even luck. The gap is how they have trained their mind to respond. Your mind is the single most powerful asset you will ever own. It can also become the heaviest weight you will ever carry. A person with an untrained mind can be handed every advantage in the world and still talk themselves out of using it. A person with a sharpened mind can be handed almost nothing and still find a way to build something out of it. The world does not only reward the people who started strongest, it rewards the people who kept developing. I want you to hear this clearly. Success is not something you chase down. It is something you become the kind of person who naturally attracts it. Most people want a different life but refuse to become a different person. They want more income but won't touch their habits. They want bigger opportunities but won't sharpen their skills. They want unshakable confidence but won't go near the things that scare them. They want the result, but they keep negotiating with the discipline that the result actually requires. Here's what almost nobody tells you early enough. Your circumstances do not get the final vote on your life. Your response to those circumstances does. You don't get to choose everything you start with, but you have enormous influence over where you end up, because that influence lives in the attitude you decide to bring into the room. Picture two builders. Each one is handed the exact same pile of bricks, the same patch of land, the same number of hours in the day. The first builder looks at the pile and says, "There's not enough here. This was never going to work." He stacks a few bricks halfway, gets discouraged, and walks away. The second builder looks at the same pile and says, "This is enough to start with. I'll figure out the rest as I go." He lays one brick, then another, then comes back the next day and does it again. A year later, the first builder is standing in front of a half-finished wall, blamming the bricks. The second builder is standing inside a house. The materials were identical. The mind behind them was not. Your life works on the same principle. Your circumstances are the materials. Your thoughts are the blueprint. Your habits are the labor. Your discipline is the weather you choose to keep building through. And eventually, what you've built becomes impossible to ignore. But here is the uncomfortable part. A lot of people spend years pouring discouragement into their own blueprint and then wonder why the building keeps collapsing. They wake up and say, "Nothing ever works out for me." They repeat, "I'm just not the lucky type." They tell themselves, "People where I come from don't get to have that." And after a few thousand repetitions, the mind quietly accepts it as fact, not because it's true, but because it's familiar. Your mind doesn't only absorb what other people say about you. It absorbs what you keep saying about yourself on repeat in private. Be careful with the story running in the background of your own head, because that story has a habit of becoming your biography. Let me tell you about a kid who grew up convinced he simply wasn't built for anything big. No connections, no head start, no safety net. Every time he looked around, he saw people who seemed further ahead, and he quietly decided they must have something he didn't. Then one ordinary day, somebody asked him a question that cracked something open. Why are you letting your past outvote your future? That single question rearranged everything. He realized his past was a chapter, not the whole book. His mistakes were tuition, not a verdict. His struggles were training, not punishment. So he changed the question he kept asking himself. Instead of "Why is this happening to me?" he started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of "Why haven't I made it yet?" he started asking, "Who do I need to become to get there?" And slowly, not overnight, not dramatically, his life began to shift. Not because the world around him suddenly got easier, but because something inside him changed first. That is the part almost everyone gets backwards. They wait for life to get easier before they decide to grow. Once I have more money, I'll get disciplined. Once I'm successful, I'll feel confident. Once things calm down, I'll work harder. But that is not how it works. You don't become capable because life finally slows down. Life starts feeling more manageable because you became stronger. The mountain doesn't shrink. The climber improves. The challenge doesn't politely step aside. You build the ability to walk through it. Think about anyone you genuinely admire. Behind every highlight reel is a version of the story nobody filmed. Mornings they didn't feel like showing up. Nights they seriously considered quitting. Long stretches where almost nobody believed in what they were building. What carried them through wasn't a permanent supply of motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It shows up and disappears whenever it feels like it. What carried them through was discipline, choosing what matters most over whatever feels easiest in that exact moment. Motivation is a mood. Discipline is a decision. And decisions, repeated enough times, turn into identity. This is why small, boring, repeated actions matter so much more than people give them credit for. Someone who reads 20 pages a night is a measurably different person after 12 months. Someone who trains their body 4 times a week is a different person after 12 months. Someone who practices one skill daily, even badly at first, is a different person after 12 months. People underestimate this because they're scanning the horizon for one dramatic turning point. But transformation rarely arrives as a single cinematic moment. It arrives as thousands of unremarkable ones. The decision to get up early, the decision to keep learning when it's not required of you, the decision to manage your reactions, the decision to stop outsourcing blame, the decision to believe your next chapter can outgrow your last one. Stack those decisions long enough and they stop being decisions. They become who you are. You are always in the process of becoming somebody. Every choice is a small vote for the person you're turning into. The real question isn't whether you're changing, because you are constantly, whether you notice it or not. The real question is, changing into what? Are you becoming someone more capable of handling pressure? Someone more honest with themselves? Someone ready for opportunities that haven't even shown up yet? Because growth isn't only about acquiring more. It's about expanding into more. You cannot carry a much bigger life around in a much smaller mindset. Eventually, you have to put down the old, cramped way of thinking that used to feel safe, because it's the exact thing standing between you and the next version of your life. And at some point, you have to confront the excuse you've been quietly recycling for years. You have to stop asking, "What happens if I fail?" and start asking, "What happens if this actually works?" Because most people aren't stopped by failure itself. They're stopped by the fear of it. They never even start, because starting means risking being wrong in public. But every person who has ever built something meaningful had a stretch where they looked uncertain from the outside. Every expert was once visibly clumsy at the thing they're now known for. Every person who eventually had proof first had to operate on belief alone. That's what trusting yourself actually means in practice. Taking the next step before you can see the whole staircase, and trusting the person you're becoming even though the current version of you still has rough edges. Your current situation is not your final address. Your current skill level is not your ceiling. There is more available inside you than you've gotten around to using yet, but none of that shows up automatically. It only shows up if you stop feeding the same tired thought loops, the same low-effort habits, the same predictable choices. Your future doesn't suddenly land on your doorstep one day. It gets assembled, piece by piece, And every single day you are either moving a little closer to the life you actually want or quietly drifting away from it. There's no neutral gear. Your mindset sits underneath all of it because your mindset shapes your decisions shape your direction, and your direction is what eventually decides where you land, not because of one massive turning point, but because of the accumulated direction of 1,000 smaller ones. Think about a plane that's off course by a single degree when it takes off. For the first few minutes, you'd barely notice. Fly that same 1-degree error across an ocean, though, and you land in an entirely different country than the one you meant to reach. Your mindset behaves the same way. A small shift in how you think today, held consistently, can put you in a completely different life 5 years from now, not because of one big leap, but because tiny, repeated corrections compound. A lot of people aren't actually short on potential. They're short on direction for the potential they already have. They've got ability without focus. They've got dreams without a plan to support them. And desire with no direction attached to it just turns into frustration. Wanting something badly does not, by itself, move anything. A seed doesn't become a tree because it wants to badly enough. It becomes a tree by following the actual mechanics of growth, the right conditions, root development, surviving a few storms, continuing to grow on the days nobody's checking on it. Your progress follows the identical logic. You have to grow roots before you're entitled to fruit. The roots are your character, your habits, the decisions you make in the rooms where nobody is clapping for you. Because real progress is rarely built on a stage. It's built backstage, in the unglamorous repetition of choosing to learn instead of scroll, to prepare instead of make excuses, to be patient instead of demanding an instant payoff. Here's the part most people quietly skip past. The life you're picturing is hidden inside the choices you're making today, not in some future moment that hasn't arrived yet. Every morning is another small vote for who you're becoming. The honest question to ask yourself is whether today's actions are actually supporting that future or just protecting your current comfort. Because comfort, more than failure, is what quietly kills the most dreams. Failure at least teaches you something. It shows you exactly where you're weak so you can go fix it. Comfort doesn't teach you anything. It just whispers that you've already done enough, that maybe this is as far as you go, that staying put is the safer bet. Listen to that voice long enough and you'll start mistaking a comfortable life for a fulfilled one. They are not the same thing, and the difference becomes obvious eventually, usually too late to do much about it. Growth, by definition, requires some level of discomfort. Every real transformation asks you to operate somewhere you don't feel fully confident yet. The first time you speak in front of a room, your hands shake. The first time you try to build something of your own, you have no idea what you're doing. The first time you practice a brand new skill, you feel like a complete beginner because you are one. That feeling isn't a signal to retreat, it's evidence that you're actually expanding. A muscle doesn't get stronger by avoiding resistance, it gets stronger because resistance forces it to adapt. Your character is built the same way. Every hard moment is a chance to build a sturdier version of yourself, but only if you let it. Two people can survive the exact same setback. One walks away saying, "Life is against me." The other walks away saying, "Life just trained me." The first becomes bitter. The second becomes better. The event was identical. The interpretation wasn't, and interpretation is doing most of the heavy lifting in how your reality actually feels. You cannot always choose what happens to you. You can almost always choose what happens inside you. You can choose your response. You can choose your attitude. You can choose the meaning you decide to attach to what you've just been through. That's the exact spot where your power actually starts. The moment you fully accept responsibility for your own life, something shifts. When you stop assigning blame, you start engineering solutions. When you drop the excuses, you start noticing options you couldn't see before. When you stop waiting to be rescued, you discover a level of capability that was sitting there the whole time, unused. Nobody is coming to build your discipline for you. Nobody is coming to hand you confidence. Confidence isn't a gift, it's a byproduct of evidence. Every time you make a promise to yourself and quietly break it, you chip away at your own credibility with yourself. Every time you make a promise and actually keep it, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through. Eventually, that belief becomes load-bearing. You start telling yourself honestly, I can handle hard things, I can adapt, I figure things out. And once that belief takes hold, your mind starts hunting for evidence to support it, which matters more than people realize, because your mind is always looking for proof of whatever you already believe. Believe you're stuck, and you'll spot every obstacle in the room. Believe you're capable, and you'll start spotting the openings instead. The room hasn't changed. The lens has. This is why two people can walk through the same set of circumstances and report two completely different worlds. One person scans for what's wrong and finds plenty of it. Another scans for what's usable and finds that instead. The circumstances were the same. The filter was not. And if your filter is loaded with fear and doubt, even a genuine opportunity can look like a threat. But once you build a mindset oriented toward growth, the whole picture changes. Obstacles start looking like instructions. Criticism starts looking like data. Failure starts looking like feedback instead of a verdict. Capable people are not the ones who avoid problems. They're the ones who got good at using them, because problems are simply the toll you pay for moving forward. Every level you reach comes with its own new set of problems attached. A beginner deals with beginner problems. A leader deals with leadership problems. Someone building something real deals with real, often invisible challenges. So don't waste your energy hopping for a problem-free life. Ask instead for the capacity to handle bigger problems well, because the goal was never to dodge every storm. The goal is to become someone who can stand in the middle of one and keep walking. It's also worth remembering, never compare your starting point to someone else's current position. You have no idea what they actually paid to get there. The late nights, the failed attempts nobody saw, the discipline they quietly built when there was no audience and no applause. The most important parts of anyone's growth almost always happen out of view. People see the result. They rarely see the years of unglamorous preparation underneath it. That's exactly why patience matters so much. Growth is often happening even when there's nothing visible to show for it yet. Nobody plants something today and digs it up tomorrow to check on its progress. You trust the process, you keep showing up, and eventually what was invisible becomes obvious. Your own growth works identically. Every page you read, every uncomfortable lesson you sit with, every time you choose improvement over a shortcut, you're planting something, even when there's no proof yet that it's working. Most people quit during exactly this invisible stage. They expect results faster than results are willing to arrive, and they underestimate just how much consistency compounds over time. Small actions, repeated without interruption, eventually produce outcomes that look disproportionate to the size of the actions themselves. That's not magic. That's just what consistency does when you give it enough time. Your habits quietly shape your identity. Your identity quietly shapes your choices. Your choices quietly shape the next version of your life. Once you really understand that loop, the question changes. You stop asking, what can I get out of this? And start asking, who do I need to become for this to be possible? Because the quality of your results is almost always downstream of the quality of person creating them. Want better outcomes? Improve yourself. Want better opportunities? Improve your skills. Want stronger relationships? Improve your character. The highest return investment available to you at any age and in any situation is the investment you make in yourself, because everything else can be taken, lost, or devalued. Money can vanish. Possessions break down. Circumstances shift without asking your permission. But the discipline, the wisdom, and the character you've actually built inside yourself travel with you no matter what changes around you. That's not a luxury. That's closer to a responsibility, because the world doesn't just need more successful people. It needs more developed ones, people who can hold success without letting it distort them, because success without character tends to go sideways eventually. More money won't repair a fragile mindset. More opportunity won't fix a lack of discipline. More recognition won't replace self-awareness you never built. The foundation has to come first, and the foundation starts with the conversation you have with yourself, alone, before anyone else gets a say in how your day goes. So here's the choice sitting in front of you right now. You can keep running the old script, the one that says you missed your window, that your past has more authority over your life than your potential does, that this is simply as far as someone like you gets to go. Or you can start writing a new one, a version built on growth instead of grievance, discipline instead of drift, honest effort instead of borrowed excuses. The person you're trying to become isn't assembled in one perfect day. They're built across thousands of ordinary ones. The days you kept a promise nobody would have caught you breaking, the days you worked without an audience, the days you kept learning even though the progress felt painfully slow, the days you picked responsibility over a convenient excuse. The shift starts the moment you stop waiting for ideal conditions and start working with the conditions you actually have. Don't wait to feel ready. Readiness is usually a byproduct of action, not a precondition for it. Don't wait for fear to leave the room. Courage is just movement that happens while fear is still sitting there with you. Don't wait for things to become easy. Strength gets built specifically by doing the things that aren't. Picture who you could be 1 year from now if you committed to this fully. Starting today instead of eventually. Picture what changes if you stop feeding your doubts the same attention you've been giving them and start feeding your actual goals instead. A year from now, you'll either be glad you started, or you'll be somewhere quietly wishing you had. That decision is being made right now, in this exact moment, by whatever you choose to do the second this ends. Nobody else is going to make that call for you. Your growth is your responsibility. Your discipline is your responsibility. Your future, for better or worse, is your responsibility. And the second you fully accept that, something shifts. You stop waiting for someone to rescue your circumstances and start becoming the person who actually changes them. You stop waiting around for opportunity and start preparing yourself well enough that you're ready the moment it shows up. You stop asking why things feel unfair and start asking what it would take to get stronger anyway, because life doesn't put a premium on the loudest complaint. It rewards the most consistent development. The goal was never to become flawless. It was always to become committed, willing to learn, willing to adjust, willing to fall down in front of people and get back up anyway, because failure isn't the opposite of success. It's one of the main ingredients in it. Every meaningful achievement has a quiet history of persistence sitting underneath it, full of moments where quitting would have been the easier option, and somebody chose not to take it. They kept going because they understood something simple. The discomfort of discipline fades fast. The regret of never finding out what you were capable of does not fade nearly as quickly. So choose your discomfort on purpose. Choose the discomfort of growth over the comfort of staying exactly where you are. Protect what you allow into your own head, because that's the soil everything else grows out of. Watch what you keep repeating to yourself when no one else is listening. Surround yourself with ideas that actually stretch you and people who expect more from you than your old habits do. Plant something worth growing, confidence, discipline, patience, possibility, and then go water it daily through action, not through wishing. Nobody is arriving to hand you the life you keep picturing. You're going to have to build it yourself, one ordinary, repeated decision at a time. The ability has been sitting inside you this whole time. The next chapter starts with one decision, that you are done letting fear run the schedule, done letting old excuses write the story, and done settling for a version of your life that is smaller than the one you're actually capable of building. So take the next step. Then take another one tomorrow. Keep learning, keep adjusting, keep showing up. Because every meaningful life eventually traces back to the same starting line, one person, on one ordinary day, finally deciding, I am done waiting to become more. I am starting now.